Can you guys please rise to your feet and give a very warm welcome to Sarah Kathleen Peck.
Thank you so much for being here. Isn't this conference great? Yeah. I have met so many of you. I am so grateful to be here. So today, I want to ask you a question. We've heard a lot from different people about starting. James talked about optimizing for starting, optimizing your habits for starting. Sean talked about getting started with a writing habit. So why do we start? Why do you start a blog? Why do you start your company? Why do you build a product? Why do you have sex and make a baby? You're starting something, right? You're starting a family. Why do you do these things? Which thing? Relationships. Because you want to see this thing in the world. Yes? Dissatisfaction. But seriously, right? Like if something doesn't exist in the world and you want to see it exist. Right? You have a big problem with something and you say, I want to see something different. We start things because we want something to be different about the world as it is. Right? There's the world as it is, and the world as we want it to be. This is Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. So today, I want to tell you 3 stories. I'm going to tell you about 3 people. I want to tell you about a mother. I want to tell you about a CEO. And I want to tell you about a solopreneur. So raise your hand if you know someone or are one of these 3 people. Excellent. So the first story I want to tell you is about a mother. Full disclosure, that mother is me. I just had my first kid. He's 1, he might be here, I don't know. If you hear somebody crying, it's my baby, and my sister will take him outside so he can play. I just had my first baby, but I haven't always been a mother. 2.5 years ago, I was working in New York City. I was downtown, I was working at a startup. We were a coding and online education company called 1 Month. I remember the first day I took my 1 Month t-shirt home. I took it home to my mom. I showed her the t-shirt. I was like, I got this new job. I'm working in a startup. And she goes, are you telling me you're pregnant? And I was like, no, Mom, no, we teach people how to code in 30 days. And I was like, also, that's a funny reaction to me being pregnant. Can we talk about that? So we started working at the startup. I was the 6th hire. And we grew to 12 people within the first 9 months, 35 people if you include all the contractors. So 9 months into my job at this startup, the 2 co-founders came to me and they said, hey, we're growing so fast, we need help scaling the business. And they made me the first vice president, first VP. So as the first level of leadership to help change the team and grow the team. That was a pretty big challenge. The next month, I found out I was pregnant. Doing both at the same time, a startup and being pregnant, was nothing like what I expected, and it was kind of a challenge. In fact, pregnancy, it was interesting. I went into the leadership position and I said, oh my gosh, I have so much to learn about management, about company organization, about growth, about how this works. And then I went into pregnancy saying, people do this. I can figure it out, right? And pregnancy was the thing that ultimately challenged me more than I expected. So much so that pregnancy was actually more of a leadership accelerator than the leadership position I took on. It was completely surprising. So here I am, 5 months pregnant, and I've got all my habits, my identity, my ways of being. Some of the ways that I showed up in the world were, I can get more done if I work harder. I can stay up late. I'm really good at hustling. I can do it all myself, right? I had other identity things like I'm really athletic, I love moving. And all of a sudden, I was inside of this body that was slowing down, and that was really hard on me. I said, I don't understand. So in one specific example, there I am on the couch, 2 o'clock naps. This was a huge contrast with the do more mentality, the hustle mentality, the fact that startups have to work all out at all times. And I said, well, first, I was afraid that I was going to let all pregnant women down, because if I couldn't make it work, then I was failing. I was failing, and we were all failing, and I had to do it for the team, right? I had to show that women could work and be pregnant at the same time, and it'd be great. It's a big weight to carry on my shoulders, but I had it. So my pregnancy in particular was, there's a saying, I love my baby, and I hate my pregnancy. That was mine. Some people love being pregnant. Did someone cheer? Thank you. So some people love being pregnant. That's wonderful. Like, everyone's experience is so different. I had, you've heard of morning sickness? So I had morning sickness and I had night sickness. So I would get sick in the morning for about 2 hours, and I'm a really big fan of my mornings, so I could no longer do my morning routine. And in fact, every time somebody tells me to get up and write my words in the morning, I kind of glare at them now. Yes, I could do that when I was 25, but... So I had morning sickness and I had night sickness. At night, by 8:15 on the dot, I started tracking it. By 8:15, it was like click, click, I'd start vomiting. Luckily, I didn't need to throw up during the day. Work was a nice distraction. But 3 or 4 hours a day of throwing up can really take its toll on you. And I had morning and night sickness for 18 weeks. If you want to do the math, that's 126 days. It's about a third of a year. No fun. So what it did for me, however, James Clear talked about creating habits. I give you one more way of making habits. How many of you have ever tried to go to sleep earlier? Does it work? No. It's so hard, right? It's so hard. So I tried everything I could to prevent night sickness. I tried eating an all-vegetarian diet. I tried eating an all-meat diet. I tried drinking like 20 gallons of orange juice every day. I tried having a ton of water. I tried everything I could. I got massages. I went swimming. I didn't do those things. I even tried fasting for a day. The thing that got me to go to sleep, the thing that got me to stop vomiting was going to sleep. I am so good at going to sleep at 7:50 p.m. I'm really good at it. I've had 126 days of practice. And what I realized through this, I got really good at going to sleep. I got really good at decision making. People would say, hey, we've got these 8 things to do. Should we do this? Should we start a blog? Should we send another email newsletter? Shall we do this? Should we do this? And I was like, nope, that's important. That's not, that's important, right? I got better at saying no. And I had to be a little more vulnerable. I had to tell my colleagues who had no idea what I was going through. I was one of 2 females in an all-male team. I had to tell them, guys, this crazy thing is happening inside my uterus. It didn't fall out. And I need to actually work from home today. I will get the thing done. It's just going to be in a different pattern. It was incredible. They say, you know that phrase, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person? You heard of that? Well, I want to amend that and say, if you want to know whether or not something is important to your company, ask a pregnant woman. Everybody should have a pregnant woman on their team because they're going to be so laser focused. They have limited amounts of time, and they're going to say, yep, that's important. Nope, skip that. Which we kind of all want, right? We get so busy in our companies. Now, I don't want to glamorize this too much because change can be incredibly hard. And the thing that really surprised me was I was expecting to make change and to make something in the world. I was making a human. That was so cool, but I wasn't prepared for how much I was going to change as a result. And it seems so obvious when you say it, but it's not just the birth of a child that's born. It's the birth of a mother. So the next story I want to tell you is about a CEO. The CEO, his name was Matan. Matan ran 1 month, and I worked really closely with him. Matan is one of those uber smart people that reads books faster than you know, and you kind of look over to his desk, and you're like, what book are you reading? I'm going to try to download the notes on that so that I know what you're thinking. I would read as fast as I could just to keep up with him. He was brilliant, and as the team started growing and started changing, I watched what he did, and I wanted to learn from it, and we started documenting how the company was changing. So I mentioned before, when we started, we were a team of 5. I was the 6th hire. So the drawing that I'm putting up here, each of these pink dots represents a person. So boop, 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 5 people. So imagine you're in a circle with 5 people. Let's do us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What I've drawn in between are the connection points where we could break up into groups of 2. So if I'm meeting with you, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if you were to meet with people, well, you've already met with me, so 1, 2, 3. Are we all following? Great. So how many connections are there in a group of 5? How many 2-pointed connections are there in a group of 5? There's 10. There's 10. So 5 people, there's 10 points of connection. If you're on a team with 5 people, and this includes if you are a solopreneur or somebody running their own business and you have 4 contractors, if you're on a team of 5 people, you have 10 connections, it actually feels great. You're like, we can get things done, I can talk to everybody, interruptions aren't a problem, right? So when the team doubles in size and you have 10 people on the team, how many points of connection are there between pairs? That's close. Did you say that? You did. 45. So there are 45 points of connection. So we don't go up by a factor of 2. You take your team from 5 to 10, and you double in complexity. So this can be kind of challenging. What happens when you grow to 20? You can probably see where I'm going with this. A team of 20. This is like one of those drawings where they say, how many triangles are there? Right? And you're tracing them all. There's 190 connections in a team of 20. So let's step back. I'm telling you a story about the CEO. What does the CEO feel like? What does the team feel like? They like that. The way the team feels is you feel like, well, we used to be able to move fast and break things, and now I feel like I'm playing a really fuzzy game of telephone where we might have a 2-person meeting on this day and then another meeting on the next day, and by the time we get to Friday, I'm not really sure what decision is being made. I'm not clear who's making the decision, and if you're the CEO, it's at this point when your first person quits and you're unprepared. And it's really distressing because you think, well, I thought they were happy. I didn't know that something was wrong. So as you grow as a company and as you grow as a CEO, the systems and the skills that you need will change. Where you are at a team of 5 is different than where you are at a team of 20 and where you go as a team of 200 if you're growing as a fast startup. And what used to work might not work now. The editorial process of change, changing who you are, changing how your team operates, changing how you run the ship as a CEO can be brutal and hard. It can be as hard as vomiting for 126 days. It doesn't always feel easy. So some of the things that we did on this team as we started to grow, we implemented a huge number of changes. We added a blog and a wiki, so external sources of information. We had to write out our decision points and our action items after each meeting. We implemented no meeting days. We decided to start doing Google system of quarterly OKRs, monthly all hands, 2-week sprints. The CEO wrote a report every Friday night, and we limited ourselves to 7 people per direct report, per leadership, per management person. I don't know what the right word is. You get what I'm saying. So we also agreed as a team to bubble up bottlenecks. What that means is anytime there was something that was stopping, we had to say, what's blocking us and why? And in our stand-ups, we'd say, what are you working on? What's your goal by the end of the week? And what are the blockers? What's holding you back and why? And that was a way to surface up what was difficult and what was hard. And we used a defined decision-making process to understand who was leading the decisions and where. Now, I could talk about this for 4 hours, but I don't have 4 hours on stage. But if you want to talk about it later, I'll put my email on the last slide, because this is the kind of stuff that I love geeking out on. It's like half of my life is geeking out about baby schedules and feeding schedules, and the other half is about companies. And I'm surprised and shocked by how much they have in common. Seriously, though, if you want to hire a really great project manager, don't go to the Project Management Institute. Just figure out whether or not somebody has breastfed a baby for a year. Keeping something alive 6 times a day is project management training. Make sure the baby is still alive. That's the qualification, right? Is the baby happy and healthy? Great, you're great. So across all of that, what we did as a company is, and this is what's really important for you, no matter whether or not you're a solopreneur or a CEO or you're running a business or you're inside of a business, you have to know what your vision is. Where are you going? What your values are. What do we stand for? What do we believe in? You know, create every day, teach everything you know. Those are core values. What direction are we headed in? And then how is the strategy. How are we going to get there? A lot of people confuse the how, number 4, for number 1. They'd say, oh, well, we make courses. That's actually a strategy, but that's not necessarily a value or a vision and why you're doing it. And across those 4 things, as I learned from Matan, as he took us through that, my role was in the questions below. Where does the communication live? Is it inside your brain? If you have to go to another person as you're scaling up your business to find out the answer to a question, you're doing it wrong. You need to have a system and a process, and that can feel hard and slow when you used to work fast and want to break things. But the problem is that if you don't implement those systems, you're going to slow down more, and the systems will help you speed up. The next really important thing, who makes the decisions and how are they made? This applies not just to businesses, but also to families, friendships, going out to dinner. How do you make decisions? What are we going to make decisions about? If you've ever been in one of those conversations, I don't know, where do you want to eat? I don't know, where do you want to eat? Maybe we can optimize our systems a little bit better. And lastly, what's breaking and how do we fix it? My husband and I do this all the time. We say, well, that's not working. I don't like it when this happens. All right, how do we fix it? No faults, no blame, just what's breaking and how do we fix it? The CEO. So what's most important to remember for the CEO in particular is that the company you start with won't be the same company that you have later on. And the CEO that you are at the beginning might not be the same CEO that's needed down the line. And in fact, we see this a lot in companies. There are really, really great startup CEOs, and there are really, really great CEOs that build businesses from 20 to 200. And knowing which is which and where your excellence lies is an important lesson to know and to learn about yourself. Some people are really good at doing both. But in order to be really good at doing both, what you have to know how to do is let old habits go and adopt new habits into the future of yourself and your company. And as a CEO, one of the things you have to remember is it's not just you that's changing, and it's not just the company that's changing. It's also every employee that you have in your company. Because as you go on this journey, your employees are too. And where they are on day 1, when they start a job, is not where they'll be 2 years later. And recognizing that and elevating them to new leadership positions and encouraging them in their growth, and maybe that's leaving your company because they're off to do something else, is the wisest thing you can do as a CEO. The last story I want to tell you about is a solopreneur. So, 9 years ago, I wrote a really crappy blog with terrible advice. I've tried to delete it all from the internet. But if you look hard enough, some of you can find it. You can find traces and elements of really bad advice from Sarah Peck from 9 years ago. And I wouldn't read it, but you can if you want. And I wrote for 3 years, and not many people read it. But I wrote every week, and I wrote a new story. And then I went to a conference just like this in Portland, Oregon. It was called the World Domination Summit, WDS. Yeah, I met you there, yeah. And at the conference, the evening of the first day, somebody asked me what I did. I was actually working in architecture at the time. I'd gotten a graduate degree in architecture. I was doing design work and tons and tons of CAD drawings, lots and lots of technical drawings during the day, and I was writing at night. But at the conference, I said, you know what? I am a writer. And it was kind of a stretch for me. I said, I'm trying to be a writer, and I just said, no, I am a writer. And my friend, his name was Nick, he said, well, where do you write? I was like, well, I'm starting a new blog, but I don't have one. He goes, give me your computer. And I said, okay, and I took my giant 15-pound Dell laptop out of my bag. It was huge. It was like one of those, like, because architecture only used Windows machines at the time. And he was like, okay. And he said, give me the URL that you want. And I said, here it is. I bought the domain. I don't know how. And he sat down next to me, and he said, all right, we're going to do this. And he set up WordPress for me. And we worked through WordPress, and I wrote my first blog post by the end of the weekend. And since then, it's been 6 years. I've written 700 essays, approximately. I made really, really wonderful friends at the conference. I've stayed in touch with them over the last 6 years. And I have been shocked by what has happened. I wouldn't have told you I would have been on stage speaking. Chase, if you're in, I see you. I see you. Chase, you said, be grateful and be in the moment with what's happening. And like, I couldn't even tell you how great it is to be here right now. Like, it's really wonderful. I'm working on my first book about my year being pregnant and working at a startup. It's called Startup Pregnant. Yeah. And I've gotten to meet so many fabulous people and make so many friends. And I made my first baby, and I'm just in awe of the life that transforms when you put the work in. So if anybody is thinking about the next move they're going to make, maybe you're going to start a company, build a product, start a blog, start a family. I couldn't have known that I would have been here back then. And I don't know where I'm going to be in 7 years or 7 years after that. So the only thing you can do is jump in. And you actually have to decide when you don't have all the information. So often we think, well, if I just had a little bit more information, then I'd be able to start. And we have to start with the person we are in the place that we are. And so in a world that's screaming full of personal development and in an internet that starts with the word how, just focus on doing the work. You don't need to know where you're going necessarily. You can just show up, take Sean's program, write 1,000 words a day, take the baby step, optimize for the habit that James talked about. Because when we make art, when we put our feet in the ground, when we write a crappy blog for 3 years, and then a little bit better and a little bit better, day in and day out, you can probably get better at writing faster than that as well. When we make art, in the process, we get to make ourselves. Every 7 years, our cells are completely new. Every cell in our body is different than the ones there were 7 years ago. So, if I can leave you one thing, I'd say please go make the work, and then let the work make you. Thank you.